So imagine winning 7 trophies in just about 1 year and 5 months, and then getting sacked at 2 a.m. only hours after your team wins 11-0 on aggregate in a semi-final to reach yet another final. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to Filipe Luis at Flamengo. To understand why, we need to go back to where it all started. On the 30th of September 2024, Flamengo appointed Filipe Luis as a head coach, and what followed was nothing short of remarkable. In a little over a year, he delivered an unbelievable run of success, winning 7 trophies: the Copa Libertadores, the Brazilian League, the Brazilian Cup, the Brazilian Super Cup, the Campeonato Carioca, the FIFA Challenger Cup, and the FIFA Derby of the Americas. Just 2 months before the sacking, Flamengo even extended his contract until the end of 2027, which makes the whole situation even more confusing. It's almost as if a manager won the Premier League and the Champions League in the same year and then got fired at the beginning of the next season. It just doesn't make sense. Now let's get into the 2 blurry reasons people believe he got sacked for. The first reason people point to is that even though he won Flamengo 7 trophies, he also lost 3 finals. One of them was an Intercontinental Cup final against PSG, but even that criticism feels a bit unfair because he dragged the game to penalties, which is honestly ridiculous considering the huge difference in squad value and budget between the 2 teams. Then there was the Brazilian Super Cup final against Corinthians. That match basically fell apart after a red card, when this bum elbowed someone in the face and forced the team to play the entire second half with 10 men. And to make things even worse, the most expensive Brazilian transfer ever missed this. He probably bet on Corinthians to win it all. The third loss came in the Recopa Sudamericana against Lanús. Flamengo lost 4-2 on aggregate with the decisive game played at the Maracanã in front of 50,000 Flamengo supporters. Sure, losing at home hurts, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just the Recopa, and compared to everything he had already won, it hardly felt like a bad result. Now, the second reason some people believed he got sacked has more to do with politics inside of the club. Filipe Luis was originally appointed by Rodolfo Landim, the former president of Flamengo, but on December 9th, 2024, the club held its presidential election and Luis Eduardo Baptista, shortly called Bob, won. Some people claim that Bob was never a big fan of Filipe Luis and didn't want him as the coach. But because Filipe Luis was doing so well and winning trophies, it was almost impossible to sack him for no reason. So the theory is that the new president simply waited for the next season when Flamengo had a slightly shaky start, picking up only 4 points from 9. Bob also told the media that Filipe Luis hadn't renewed his contract immediately because he was negotiating with Chelsea, which some people believe was just a way to shift the narrative and hide the real reason behind the sacking. This whole situation actually reminds me of when Florentino Perez sacked Vincent Del Bosque at Real Madrid. Del Bosque at the time had just won 2 Champions Leagues, 2 La Liga titles, an Intercontinental Cup, a UEFA Super Cup, and a Spanish Super Cup in 4 years. Yet he was sacked just 24 hours after leading Real Madrid to their 29th La Liga title. And to be fair, when it comes to coaches in Brazil, no one is really safe. A club can literally go through 3 or 4 coaches in the same season. For example, Flamengo have gone through around 30 coaches since 2010. Palmeiras, which is considered a relatively stable club, has had around 23 managers in that same period. On the extreme end, Vasco da Gama has gone through about 59 managers, which is an outrageous number for a 16 years period. There's even a study suggesting that the average time for a football coach in Brazil is just 5 months and 13 days. At one point, the country's football federation even tried to introduce a rule that would limit clubs to only 2 coaches per season in an attempt to stop the constant sackings, but the clubs voted against the rule and it never happened. Even by Brazilian standards, where managerial turnover is already crazy, the sacking of Filipe Luis feels completely absurd. A young promising coach who won 7 trophies in just over a year gets fired in the middle of the night. Even in a country where no coach is safe, this one just doesn't make sense.